Ready?
We can go ahead.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parajikacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parajikacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavin Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Tapas. Tapas, you there?
Yes, Prabhu. It
What's
is
the verse?
1849.
49, I thought so. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 13th day of December 2021 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 18 entitled Conclusion, the Perfection of Renunciation, text 49 on page 691. Asakta Buddhi. No? Page, text 49, 1849 on 691. Asakta Buddhi Sarvatra Chitatma Vigataspaha Naishkamya Siddhim Paramam Sannyasa Sannyasena Adhigacchati. Asakta Buddhi Sarvatra Jitatma Vigataspaha Naishkamya Siddhim Padamam Sannyasena Adhigacchati. You got the page, Prabhu? 691. Asakta Buddhi Sarvatra Jitatma Vigataspaha Naishkamya Siddhim Padamam Sannyasena Adhigacchati. Asakta Buddhi Sarvatra Jitatma Vigataspaha Naishkamya Siddhim Padamam Sannyasena Adhigacchati. Asakta Buddhi Sarvatra Chitatma Vigataspaha Naishkamya Siddhim Padamam Sannyasena Adhigacchati. Asakta Buddhi Sarvatra Chitatma Vigataspaha Naishkamya Siddhim Padamam Sannyasena Adhigacchati. Asakta Buddhi Sarvatra Chitatma Vigataspaha Naishkamya Siddhim Padamam Sannyasena Adhigacchati. Asakta Buddhi Sarvatra Jitatma Vigataspaha Naishkamya Siddhim Padamam Sannyasena Adhigacchati. Asakta Buddhi Sarvatra Chitatma Vigataspaha Naishkamya Siddhim Padamam Sannyasena Adhigacchati. Anyone else? Asakta Buddhi Sarvatra Chitatma Vigataspaha Naishkamya Siddhim Padamam Sannyasena Adhigacchati. Who's next? Chitatma Vigataspaha Naishkamya siddhim padamam sannyasena adhigacchati. Zoomland.
Ashakta buddhi sarvatra
Asakta buddhi savatra
jitatma vigata spreha
chitatma bhagataspaha
naishkarmya siddhim paramam
Naishkamya siddhim padamam
sannasena adhigacchati.
sannyasena adhigacchati. Page 691. Got it? Okay. Go ahead. You want to try it? Asakta buddhi savatra chitatma vikataspaha naishkamya siddhim padamam sannyasena adhigacchati. Asakta buddhi, having unattached intelligence, sarvatra, everywhere, jita atma, having control of the mind, vigataspaha, without material desires, naishkarmya siddhim, the perfection of non-reaction, paramam, supreme, sannyasena, by the renounced order of life, adhigacchati, one attains. Translation. One who is self-controlled and unattached and who disregards all material enjoyments can obtain by practice of renunciation the highest perfect stage of freedom from reaction. Purport. A real renunciation means that one should always think himself part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and therefore think that he has no right to enjoy the result of his work. Since he is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, the results of his work must be enjoyed by the Supreme Lord. This is actually Krishna consciousness. The person acting in Krishna consciousness is really a sannyasi, one in the renounced order of life. By such a mentality, one is satisfied because he is actually acting for the Supreme. Thus he is not attached to anything material. He becomes accustomed to not taking pleasure in anything beyond the transcendental happiness derived from the service of the Lord. A sannyasi is supposed to be free from the reactions of his past activities, but a person who is in Krishna consciousness automatically attains this perfection without even accepting the so-called order of renunciation. This state of mind is called yoga rudha, or the perfectional stage of yoga. As confirmed in the 3rd chapter, yastvatma ratir eva syat. One who is satisfied in himself has no fear of any kind of reaction from his activity. Om jnana timarandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshu unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, this Bhagavad Gita is spoken on the battlefield. It's spoken externally, or the titular purpose is to induce Arjuna to act, to fight this battle, which he has mounted an argument for not fighting in the 1st chapter and the beginning of the 2nd chapter. And the argument for his not fighting, he based it on the Vedas. He was talking about how if I fight this battle and all of my friends and relatives are killed, and my worshipable teacher and grandfather Bhishma, friends and relatives, then all these men will be killed, the women will become unprotected, there will be varna sankara, unwanted children being born, society will be degraded, there won't be any offerings to the forefathers, ancestors. We know how important that is, actually, we learn that. Shraddha ceremonies, so that they won't fall down from their position, and if I do kill them, then they will fall down, and I will be the cause of degradation. I'll go to hell, and I'll help everyone else go to hell. He had it all figured out, how, he shouldn't fight. But he wasn't satisfied, because here's Krishna on the chariot, Dharma personified, who was telling him to fight. And so the whole Bhagavad Gita was spoken, at least on one level, in order to convince Arjuna that it was his duty to fight, and that evil would come from his not fighting. This was it. This is the idea. So this chapter, a lot of it is talking about ways in which we act, why we act. Remember the five principles of action: the senses, the place of action, the body, the endeavor, the super soul, the karta, doer. And here, this is all, this key word here, naishkarmya. Naishkarmya is defined perfectly by Prabhupada here in the word by words. Non-reaction. Acting may look like you're doing the same activities as everyone else, but there's no reaction. And the whole difference is why you're doing it, what your motivation is. The devotee is sweeping the floor here, and two doors down, they're sweeping the bar floor. But the result is completely different. The devotee who's sweeping the floor and thinking maybe Krishna's behind the curtain, he's saying, I'm doing this for Krishna. I'm doing it for Krishna's temple. I'm not getting any paycheck here, you know, and get a few. Of course, the prasadam is nice to have, and a nice warm place. They have heating upstairs, so you can sleep nicely. But that's not why you're doing it. That's just facilitating your keeping your soul and body together, so you can perform the service. So here, remember the title is the perfection of renunciation. So this is the verse directly dealing with that subject. The first thing is asakta buddhi, being unattached to the fruits of the activity. This is such a key element because all around us, the default activity is that to be completely attached, right? Nobody feels they're getting paid enough, right? And if they do get paid enough, it's not enough anymore because the value of the dollar is going down, and so you have to get paid more. But you know, it's all fruitive. Everything is fruitive, right? So, but here exactly asakta buddhi. You're not attached to the fruit. So what are you attached to? You're attached to Krishna. If like a mother may work so hard, they do work hard, even with one child. We'll just speak of several children, working all day, cleaning and cooking. You know, oftentimes they have to have a job outside. It's very difficult. So what's the beneficiary? Of course, she's also living, but there's the children. If my children are nicely fed and they're nicely clothed and they're going to school and they have a nice place to live and a nice, not just physically warm, but there's love in the household, and then she feels happy. It's also fruitive to some degree, you know. I mean, obviously it's not perfect, but it's an example of selfless service. The motive is different. So that's exactly what this. Asakta buddhi means having an unattached intelligence, being unattached to the fruits of the activity. Jitatma, one has to be self-controlled because the senses are always pushing us to try to enjoy this, try to enjoy that. The mind is directing here for your own pleasure. So the transcendentalist is controlling the senses and dovetailing their activities in the service of Krishna. There's a nice verse, probably would love to quote this verse by Prabodhananda Saraswati in a book called the Chaitanya Chandramrita. I fell in love with this book back in about 1979 when I got a translation from my old friend Krishna Krata in L.A. And it's a beautiful book, all about the glories of Lord Chaitanya. And the verse Prabhupada would often quote, Kaivalyam narakayate tujashapur akasha pushpayate durdan tendriya kala sarva patali prodkata dangstrayate vishwang purna sukhayate vidimahindra ajistakitayate yat karunya kataksa vaiva bhavatam tam goram evastama. I glorify Gaura, Lord Chaitanya, the golden avatar. One who is empowered by his merciful sidelong glance. In other words, one who is serving the Sankirtan movement and doing the things that we know we should do in practicing bhakti yoga, become empowered by Lord Chaitanya, and here's the result. First thing is kaivalyam narakayate. Kaivalya means impersonalism. It means mayavad. It means merging into Brahman, losing your identity. And what's the benefit? Thank God, no more birth or death or old age or disease. So you get liberation. But it's entirely a selfish motive. Prahlad Maharaj, he has a wonderful verse where he says, Prayena Deva Munayo Swava Mukti Kama. For the most part, the sages and the transcendentalists and the yogis, they have Svava Mukti Kama. He puts it in the category of kama, means personal desire, intense desire for their own mukti. And to heck with everyone else. They go to they don't stay in the cities. They go off to the mountains, off to the Himalayas, into the caves to try to meditate and transcend control the mind, control the senses through the process of yoga or whatever, so that they can break free of the round of birth and death. But devotees aren't doing that. They consider that kind of liberation to be hell. Narakayate means like going to hell. Why? Because there's no Krishna. There's no bhakta. There's no bhakti. In order for there to be bhakti, the exchange of loving devotion, there has to be God, there has to be the servitor, the devotee, and there has to be the bhakti itself. But as soon as you talk about kaivalya, this is the Brahman effulgence. Where's Krishna? It's just a big white light. There's no possibility of bhakti. So for a devotee, forget it. They'd rather stay in this material world and be able to serve Krishna. Tridashapur akasha pushpayate. Tridashapur refers to the 33 or the 33 million different varieties of heaven. Tridashapur, Pura means cities of demigods. It's just like a sky flower. In other words, it's unreal. You have absolutely no desire to go to that place because you're not thinking of increasing your sense gratification. So all of this Indraloka and all this stuff that's described in the Karmakanda section of the Vedas, how you can graduate to Indraloka. Krishna speaks in the 9th chapter. Chine punne matyalokam vishanti. Tetam bhuktva swargalokam vishalam. In Swargaloka, in heaven, you can enjoy all these godly delights for a long time. A lot longer than our crummy little 100-year maximum here. But ultimately, your piety runs out and you have to fall back down to Martyaloka, this world of death. So what did you gain by all that effort to go to heaven? You're just coming and going, Krishna says. So the devotee is not concerned about that. It's just like a sky flower. In other words, it doesn't exist. And then here's the pertinent line. Durdantendriya kala sarvapatali protkata dangstrayate. So durdanta means difficult to control indriya senses. Without bhakti, without yoga, it's impossible. You're a slave to the senses. You don't even know. You think this is me, I'm enjoying, but it's really your senses that are demanding and getting you trapped, keeping you trapped in the material world. So very difficult to control. And they're compared here to poisonous snakes that will bite you and kill your chances for transcendence. But here he says, those same senses you have, but they have the poison teeth removed. If the fangs are removed from a cobra, he may scare a child, but if someone knows that, he can't scare anybody. He's really harmless, right? So why are they removed? Because the very same senses, the tongue, the eyes, the ears, everything, is being used in Krishna's service. So rather than become dangerous and drag you down, they become vehicles, they become means of serving Krishna, of connecting your consciousness to Krishna. That's the whole art and science of bhakti. And then it says, Durdan Garbhavadli protat dangstrayade vishrang purna sukhayate. It's a very interesting statement. The whole world, the whole universe is full of joy for such a person. Now how can that be? There's so much suffering. Well, of course, Prahlad gives a perfect example, the perfect verse, Prahlad Maharaj, in his prayers to Lord Nrsimhadev. He says, as far as I'm concerned, personally, naivod vijay, I have no trouble in my mind. Naivod vijay podadodatya vaitaranyas. Because I'm with you across the ocean, the river of Vaitaranya. I'm with you in the spiritual world. How does he do that, even though physically he may be here? Vaitaranyas twadviya gayana mahamata magna chitta. Because wherever I am, I can chant your powerful glories and immerse my mind in an ocean of bliss. And he proved it. Even in the middle of the pot of boiling oil that his father is trying to kill him, he's thinking of Krishna, he's in bliss. How can that be? Because he completely transcended the material plane and he was protected by Lord Nrsimhadev, Krishna. So that's the secret. This is real renunciation is based on tasting at every moment the higher pleasure, as Prabhupada mentions in the purport, the happiness that comes from serving Krishna. And that happiness is like a great ocean. Isn't it there in the first verse of the Shikshastika? Anandam buddhivardhanam. He says, ever-increasing ocean of bliss by chanting the holy name, by Sankirtan. So that we all have that potency, each one of us, being a spirit soul. We're all part and parcel of Krishna. He's Anandamaya Vyasat. meaning that he's made of Ananda. Krishna is never unhappy even when he's killing the demons. It's just another play for him. Right? So since we're part and parcel of Krishna, if we link up to him by helping in his pastimes and serving and being conscious of him, we can also have bliss at every moment. Vishrang puna sukhayate. So, but why is the devotee unhappy? Pada dukkha dukhi. Because he sees the foolish souls trying to enjoy sense gratification and suffering like anything. This is Prahlad Maharaj. I'm personally blissful, but I'm concerned and in anxiety because of how to save these poor souls. That's the mood of Lord Chaitanya's followers. So then it goes on, Vidya Mahindra Disakitayate. And the last benefit is that we offer respect to the devas, but we don't worship them. And we see them, compared to Krishna, as no more significant than insects. Kitayate. In other words, we're not bewildered by the allurements of going to heavenly delights and things like that. How could you be allured by that when you're tasting bhakti rasa at every moment? You see, this is real renunciation, firm foundation. So that's the perfection of Naishkarmya. Means you're active like anything, trying to serve Krishna, trying to spread Krishna consciousness, doing all sorts of things, maintaining this temple. As Prabhupada showed, he was always active. He was always, fully engaged. But there's no result. Naishkarmya means there's no sinful reaction or even pious reaction to keep you bound to this world. that's Naishkarmya. How to act, how to work in this world without getting entangled in the world. Floating like a lotus flower, on the river. So that's it. And this is the true perfection of sannyas, which is the title of this chapter. So here he's giving the hint. Asakta buddhi, all this very key verse. And we're coming up now to the culmination of the whole Gita, and there'll be very important quotable verses coming up. Any questions on this verse? Okay. Let's go on. Text 50. Siddhim prapto yata brahma tatapnoti nabodame samasena vakanteya nishta jnanasya yapara. O son of Kunti, learn from me how one who has achieved this perfection can attain to the supreme perfectional stage, Brahman, the stage of highest knowledge, by acting in the way I shall now summarize. Purport. The Lord describes for Arjuna how one can achieve the highest perfectional stage simply by being engaged in his occupational duty, performing that duty for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One attains the supreme stage of Brahman simply by renouncing the result of his work for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. That is the process of self-realization. The actual perfection of knowledge is in attaining pure Krishna consciousness. This is described in the following verses. So the perfection of renunciation, which is the title of the chapter and is now being summarized, includes this element of becoming more and more deeply Krishna conscious. There's a nice verse in the 11th canto, spoken by one of the 9 Yogendras, where he's describing how one should live and feel on a moment-to-moment basis. It's reflected in the verses of the Bhagavad Gita, but this gives a very detailed view. Kayena vacha manasendriyava buddhyatmanava nusadasvabhavat karoti yadyat sakalam padasmai narayanayeti samarpayetat. So he gives a list here which covers everything. Whatever you do with your body, with your words, with your mind, with your intelligence, with your very self, with all of these functions that you have gotten due to your previous karma, it doesn't matter. We should act in such a way that karoti yadyat, whatever you do with them, and we're always doing something with them, you should feel this is an offering to Narayan. I am doing this as an offering to Narayan. You're walking from point A to point B. Every step should be, I'm doing this for Krishna. It's not on my account. I have no personal motive. This is what it means to be the non-doer. Even though we're a karta, one of the 5 elements, that function of being the doer is sublimated, dovetailed into fulfilling Krishna's desire. So this is the sense he's doing it. He's the ultimate doer. And he's the ultimate enjoyer. What are we? We're simply agents. Nimitta matram bhava sabhyatachan. What does Krishna says in the 11th chapter? It says, Arjun, look, all of these Arjun had seen how all these soldiers were being devoured by this horrific form of time that was frightening to Arjun, the universal form. You may remember in the 11th chapter. They're being crushed between his teeth, and Arjun was trembling. This wasn't his friend that he was seeing here. Who are you? He says, oh, Kalos Miloka, I am time, come to destroy everything. So they're already killed. But your success, Arjuna, is just being my agent. You just do what you ordinarily do. You're a great fighter. But do it for me. And I will see to the success of everything. And ultimately, it was what should we say, a long shot that the Pandavas would win, because Arjuna, actually, Karna was more powerful fighter, Drona, Bhishma, But he was able to kill both Drona and Karna, and Bhishma was killed by Shikandini, I think. Anyway, they all died. But that was all Krishna's arrangement. He stepped in just when he needed to step in. When Arjuna was threatened by Bhishma, you remember? And Krishna gets off the chariot. It's broken, one of the wheels is there, and he acts like a disc, moving toward Bhishma. Bhishma had vowed that, he had been accused of not fighting hard, because they knew that he loved the Pandavas and he had these dual allegiances. So Bhishma said, I will force Krishna to break his promise. He promised not to fight on the battlefield. That's why he took the chariot as a chariot driver. But he'll either have to break his promise, or I'll kill Arjuna today, his friend. And Arjuna was threatened. His chariot was in the mud or something, and so Krishna got off the chariot, and he started going toward Bhishma, and Bhishma said, yes, take me, kill me now. But then, was it then that the conch blew the ending? I think it just blew to end the fighting that day. That he was spared, obviously. But the whole idea is that Arjuna, he gave up his whole personal desire. In the beginning, as it said at the end of chapter 2, he wanted to satisfy his own senses by not fighting, right? In other words, the motivation, he may have couched it in so many Vedic terms that he was talking about, but really he just didn't want to be responsible for killing his friends, his teacher, and especially Bhishma and so forth. So he had this argument. But after he heard the Bhagavad Gita, he's coming up, he's going to say the key words, Karishe vachanang tava. Yes, I will do as you say, right? So what changed is that he was covered by Krishna. He's an eternal friend of Krishna, but he was put into Maya so that Krishna could speak the Bhagavad Gita. And he came back into his actual identity, to living his identity, which was a servant of Krishna. Even though externally it may have seemed so horrible or even immoral, but it doesn't matter, because this is obviously what Krishna wants, and you actually do that. Now, we can't, speculate on what that is. We have to, it has to come from Shastra, come from the spiritual master. But the basic principle is that if we give up our own speculation about what will make us happy and come into the realm of devotional service and find out what will make Krishna happy and do that, then we find ourselves actually happy. When we try to, this is the paradox. So where is the bliss? You know where the bliss is? Forget about your bliss. Just try to make Krishna happy and the devotees, you see, and do what you're supposed to do. Okay, my spiritual master told me to chant. I'll try to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. I'm chanting. Well, no, you can't just chant. You have to avoid the offenses. You have to be attentive, right? Okay, well, I can do that. Try to do that. Okay, that's sadhana. And you find that if you just do that, where's the bliss coming from? It's coming straight from Krishna, from the name of Krishna. Krishna is not different from his name. And here's a very important point in the philosophy that we sometimes forget, because bhakti is all about seeing there's a difference between us and God, right? And we're not God for sure, right? But it's also important to remember the oneness. Achintya beda beda tattva. This is a very important phrase that we should all know. First, achintya means inconceivable, inconceivably. beta, different, and one with God. And in fact, everything is Achincha Beta Beta. And we're included in that everything. So what does that mean? It means that there is this eternal difference in that we're infinitesimal particles of spirit, and Krishna is the whole spirit. We're localized. We can be in one place at one time, and he's everywhere. He's pervading everything in every atom through his super soul, and also expanding as his energies. So he's actually everywhere. So this is inconceivable. Simultaneous, one and different. So let's think about the oneness, because we know we're different, so that we can do bhakti. But what about the oneness? The oneness means that if we participate in Krishna's happiness, and we try to serve him, then since we're part of him, then we also become happy. We become, Prabhupada would point out how this was in the early days in Bombay. He brought his whole crew with him to India in 1970 of Westerners. It was a genius move, you know, because what did he have that he could really preach with in India? He had his disciples, and they became an amazing spectacle. You know, the dancing white elephants, the Western sadhus, which was like a completely amazing thing, right? And wherever they went, they were a great attraction. He had pandals, and you know, he's coming from 26 Second Avenue. He has an audience of 25 people, and as soon as he starts speaking, 5 people get up and leave. You know, they just came for the kirtan, then they come back in half an hour for the prasadam. You know, this is the people he was preaching to, and so he goes to India and he starts traveling around, and before you know, he's speaking to thousands of people in the pandals in Bombay and Delhi and Calcutta eventually, you know, because he was an attraction and the potency was there. So you know, Prabhupada was always engaging everything he could in the service of Krishna, and he was always on this high level of bliss and happiness, and that was part of the attraction. Was seeing how Srila Prabhupada was emanating this saintliness and this joy and, you know, knowledge, obviously, and so attractive. And so people wanted to get that. Okay, well, here's what you do: chant Hare Krishna. See, you can learn it. You learn the mantra in about 10 seconds, and just chant it. All right, I'll try it. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hey, it's got a nice beat to it. Hare Krishna. Before you know it, you think reading the book, right? Because it's true, it's natural, it works for everybody. The guy went to Africa, you know, Malaysia, everywhere. Russia was huge, right? Probably 20 times more devotees in Russia there are in America right now. So the point is that the process works, and why does it work? Because it's based on the spiritual truth. That as soon as we contact Krishna, it's like back home, you know that phrase, back home, back to Godhead, you know? He says, oh, yeah, this is what I've been looking for. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. So that it's because we're part and parcel of Krishna, and when we can even a little bit please him by chanting his name and serving and sitting in class, then there's a joy that awakens in your heart. And that's just a taste. You know, we read about how you can increase it to the point where it's like an ocean. And you're completely indifferent to all these, you know, allurements of the material world. It doesn't enter into your mind. This morning, I think it was, I got to quote one of the verses from the Sadhu Sangashtaka. It's worth looking. This is 8 verses in the Srimad Bhagavatam. You won't find a chapter listed like that. That was my own name. I hope I didn't commit an offense. But it happens to be 8 verses near the beginning of Kapila Dev's teachings to his mother. And it's all about the importance of sadhu sangha. That's what we're doing here, right? You're associating with each other, and I'm associating with you, and therefore we all get sadhu sangha. So he's saying there that prasangamadanam pasham, that the attachments we have for the things of this world, they're very powerful, like very strong ropes. We cultivate them over lifetimes, you know. And it's just like, this is what life is, you know. I got this strong urge to do this, and I fulfill it like that. These are built up. They're not natural to the soul. They're superfluous. So those have to be transferred to the sadhus, those attachments, you know. And so who's the sadhu? He has 3 verses describing the sadhu. First is tatikshava, very tolerant and merciful, karunika. Suridak sarvadehinam, friend of all living beings. Because he sees everyone as a soul, as a spirit, part and parcel of his beloved Lord. Jata Shatava, and therefore he has no enemy. He has no enmity toward anyone, although they may hate him, like Jesus Christ, right? The demons will hate. But he has no hate. Shanta, and because of this, no material desires and no hatred for anyone, is very peaceful. And Sadhava Sadhabhushana, these are the ornaments of a sadhu. And what does he do? Maya Nanyamya Bhavena, undeviating devotion unto me, says Lord Kapila Deva, an incarnation of Krishna. Bhaktim Kurvanda Yedvidham, very firmly fixed in that. And what are the symptoms? For my sake, you will give up any activity that is harmful to devotional service. And sometimes even, if it's necessary, break the bonds of attachment to family and so forth, which Arjuna had to do. And so then he says, one of the results of that is, Marashriya Katamrishta Shinvantiktayanticha. What does he do? He's always hearing and chanting the very sweet vibrations concerning me. Name, form, qualities, and pastimes. Marashriya, taking shelter of me. Katamrishta. Mrishta means very delightful. And by that hearing and chanting and absorption and thinking of me and glorifying me, the threefold miseries don't affect him as much. In other words, you have the body, you know they're happening, but your mind is on Krishna and you're able to transcend and tolerate, you see, and continue with the bliss. So then he goes on and he encourages his mother to search out such sadhus, because by their association, you will be able to eradicate all of the sangha dosha, the faults that you've acquired from bad association. This is in the Bhagavad Gita also, in the 15th chapter. Nirmana moha jita sangha dosha. Conquering over jita sangha dosha. It means the faults of bad association or material attachment. And then he goes on, satam prasangan mama virya sambido. How, this is a famous verse, that in the association of devotees, one will hear glorification of me, says Lord Kapila Deva, Krishna. Mama virya bhavanti ritkana rasayana kata. And such vibrations are like a life-giving elixir for the ear and the heart. Rasayana kata. Sadoshanat ashu apavarga vartmani. This is the path of liberation. And it's the most easy form of yoga. Did anyone perform any great austerities to come and sit here and hear Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita? But this is it. This is the product being recommended by Lord Kapila Deva. So he goes on and ends up that if you follow this, you become renounced, just like it mentioned here, and you become fixed in devotion, and you'll ultimately realize me, says Lord Kapila Deva, Krishna. So this is like the basis of the movement. The ideal, the essence of all sadhu sangha is kirtan, hearing and chanting. I'm hearing what you chant, you're hearing what I'm chant, and we're both chanting the same thing, Hare Krishna. But it's just a wonderful way of meditation. Chanting, dancing, you can go on for hours. So that's Lord Chaitanya's revelation. And this is, you find, kayena vacha manasindriya, your body, your senses, your intelligence, everything is being engaged, is being dovetailed in meditating on Krishna. And you're happy, you're forgetting about all the problems. You know? And as far as Varnashram goes, where's the Varnashram? In the middle of the kirtan. There's a Sudra. Get in the back of the temple room, we're dancing over here. This is it's not like that. That's all external, it doesn't matter. So, which one do we read? 50? Any questions, comments? How can one achieve this perfection? Okay. We have time. Let's go on. All right, so he's going to give an instruction now on how to come up to the Brahma Bhuta platform. Buddhya Vishuddhya Yukto Dhrityatmanang Niyamyacha Shabdadin Vishayang Tyaktva Ragadvesho Vyudasyacha Vivikta Sevi Lagvashi Yatabakaya Manasaha Dhyana Yoga Paro Nityam Vairagyang Samapashvitaha Ahankaram Balang Darpam Kamam Kodam Parigraham Vimuchanir Mama Shanto Brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Being purified by his intelligence and controlling the mind with determination, giving up the objects of sense gratification, being freed from attachment and hatred, one who lives in a secluded place, who eats little, who controls his body, mind, and power of speech, who is always in trance, and who is detached, free from false ego, false strength, false pride, lust, anger, and acceptance of material things, free from false proprietorship, and peaceful, such a person is certainly elevated to the position of self-realization. Purport. When one is purified by intelligence, he keeps himself in the mode of goodness. Thus one becomes the controller of the mind and is always in trance. He is not attached to the object of sense gratification, and he is free from attachment and hatred in his activities. Such a detached person naturally prefers to live in a secluded place. He does not eat more than what he requires, and he controls the activity of his body and mind. He has no false ego because he does not accept the body as himself, nor has he a desire to make the body fat and strong by accepting so many material things. Because he has no bodily concept of life, he is not falsely proud. He is satisfied with everything that is offered to him by the grace of the Lord, and he is never angry in the absence of sense gratification. Nor does he endeavor to acquire sense objects. Thus, when he is completely free from false ego, he becomes non-attached to all material things, and that is the stage of self-realization of Brahman. That stage is called the Brahma-bhuta stage. When one is free from the material conception of life, he becomes peaceful and cannot be agitated. This is described in Bhagavad Gita 270. Apo yamana machala pratishtam samudramapa pravashanti yadvat tadvat kamayam pravashanti sarve sashantamapnoti nakama kami. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. So this is a formula for achieving the Brahma-bhuta platform, and we'll learn in the next verse. This is all very quotable verses from now on. That in that stage one attains devotion to me, mad bhaktim labate param. Now, I always like to point out, we haven't yet reached 54, and we'll cover that one tomorrow probably, because it's so important a verse, leave it time to speak. But mad bhaktim labate param. But we find in the 14th chapter, at 14:26, near the end of the chapter, how to transcend the modes. And Krishna gives the simple, because this is what this is all about, how to transcend the material modes and come to the level of Brahman. Mam chayova bicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityajan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. So there he's saying that one who practices devotional service unto me, abhyabichari, without deviation, not failing in any circumstance, right? So transcends the modes of nature and comes to the level of Brahman. So in that verse we have bhakti bringing you to the level of Brahman. In this coming verse we have being on the Brahma-bhuta platform and then attaining bhakti. So which comes first, the bhakti or the Brahma-bhuta? I was always puzzled by this. And then I noticed one very important difference. In the 14:26 verse it says bhakti yogena. In this verse, it says mad bhaktim. There's a difference in the ultimate sense between bhakti and bhakti yoga. The gopis are not practicing bhakti yoga, nor the cowherd boys. Bhakti yoga is the process, sadhana bhakti, by which you come to the point of being able to taste rasa. Another bhakti yoga leads to bhakti. Actual bhakti is the eternal dharma of the soul, you see. But the process of bhakti, which we're practicing, involves disciplines, hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, avoiding the offenses, and all these different things. You see the difference. But bhakti itself is this eternal exchange of loving love with Krishna, devotion and service. You see, so bhakti yoga leads to bhakti in a more technical sense. So this next verse, but let me concentrate on what we just read. So there's this series of 3 verses describing being pure, intelligent, controlling the mind with determined. And I was thinking, each of these has a corollary within the Krishna consciousness movement. For instance, being purified is intelligent, controlling the mind with determination. Well, that's part of what we try to practice. Being purified by his intelligence. Well, what do you do with the intelligence? You read Prabhupada's books. You feel understand yourself in this world and relationship and what to do and what not to from Prabhupada's books. And that's the strengthening of the intelligence. You remember that famous verse, I won't quote the verse again, by Madhavendra Puri, where he says, in so many different ways I've been serving my masters, lust, anger, and greed, life after life. They've shown me no mercy. They're like slave drivers. You ever see the old, I remember movies when I was a kid, where, the Romans, they got the ships, and the guys are like slaves in the ships, and you got the guys. There's lust over there, and there's another one called greed, okay, I'll serve you. And he says, they're never satisfied. They never let me stop the service. So he said, but now my intelligence has gotten stronger. My intelligence has, and I'm rejecting those demands of the service. But we can't be without service, because that's our nature. So now he says, now I'm coming to you, Krishna. You please engage me in your service. And that service is engaged in out of love and affection, not because somebody's whipping you. You see? The senses themselves are like taskmasters. We discussed this in this chapter, I think, over the time. It keeps coming up. Addictions. One becomes addicted to the nicotine or, alcohol or some drug or something. So at a certain point, you realize, God, I'm a slave. I remember when I was growing up, I grew up near New York, and it was the heroin capital of the country at that time. There were like 80,000 addicts just in New York, and the rest of the country was a smattering. And now it's different, but there's still plenty of addicts there, but they're all over. And so we'd say, yeah, he's got a monkey on his back. That's like a graphic description. You can't get him off. Go here, go there. Okay. Let me get it fixed. It's crazy, but that's what happens. So ordinary sense gratification is like that. Not so extreme, You think, I'm deciding to go here and do it. But really you're also controlled. You're being, So we're going to be controlled. We have to serve. The question is, what's the result of that service? Serving the senses, serving the lower self leads to pain, suffering, rebirth, sin, losing the human form of life. But service to Krishna leads back to Godhead for an eternal life of bliss and knowledge. So you make the decision, which is the better investment. We can see all around us. I mean, I would be long dead if I had followed the paths of so many of my contemporaries. And anyway, it's just, Prabhupada saved me. But so all of these have their corollaries. And I was thinking, controlling the mind, giving up the object of sense gratification. Okay, if you live in a Krishna conscious life, you do that as far as possible. Freed from attachment and hatred. We don't hate anybody. One who lives in a secluded place is a temple or a home which is made into a temple. Eats little prasadam, keep body and soul together. Always in trance. That means always chanting Hare Krishna. It's like that. This is in other words, this is the feasible way of practicing these verses, fulfilling the need in modern day. You don't lose anything, and you get the highest result of yoga practice. Okay, so it's a little late. If there's one final comment, we're going to resume tomorrow with this wonderful verse, text 54, and then the one after it, which is even more wonderful. Yes, we have one question, and we have the mic all keyed up.
Just quickly, in this text, it said that you eats little.
Yes.
But I remember the other text in the 18th chapter. I think maybe.
Where is it?
That a yogi is not supposed to eat too much or too little.
Yes, chapter 6.
Chapter 6. Okay. And how come does this one says that it eats little? You're supposed to eat little.
He doesn't eat too much or eat too little. No, that's there in the 6th chapter. One who doesn't eat too much or too little, one who doesn't sleep too much or too little, is the medium way. He becomes free from problems. So it's believe me, they're both. It's there. But I mean, for our own good, it's like just don't eat too much. Prabhupada, he gave a whole talk on chapter 6, and he said for children they can eat as much as they want, But if you're going to err on the side of eating too little. He knows that'll never happen. But it's a battle because you give up so much sense gratification and there's all this wonderful prasad. So it's difficult at first. It took me about 7 years. I mean, I was totally addicted to halva. That's how I became a devotee. I would take home that I first started. I was eating raw food. You can imagine. I was just drinking juices and eating fruits and nuts basically. And so then I come to the feast, and I said, well, I can't eat that, can't eat that, I can't eat any of this. So just try this. This one. Okay, one little spoonful isn't going to hurt me. All right, I'll try a little more. So before long, I would visit the temple, and I'd have a whole half-gallon. They had the half-gallon milk containers. They would fill that up for me. It was supposed to last a week. I would take it home. It would last about 3 days, and I'd be way winning. So I became a halva addict. Where am I going to find halva except at the temple? I had to join. So, but then at a certain point, you realize, yes, let me control it gradually, So you eat moderately. And the best way to do that is to become addicted to shlokas, nectar shlokas. Madodam madodam babarasya babo madodam madodam vadanam madodam madokandi madusmitameta. The whole. Madodam 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 madodam. Sweet, sweet is my dear Lord's form. Sweet is still his face so fair. But his honey-scented, gentle smile is sweet beyond compare. And you can eat as many as you want of those. You never overeat. It's good. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Haribol.